Time for Business Now, which means Kate Moody, which means you're here in the studio.
And we're going
here. I know your first topic because you've told me, and it's in the COVID era, new passport is emerging. Tell us about this new era of COVID-related passports to get around.
A vaccine passport is what we've been talking about it for months, and we're a bit closer to it becoming a reality now. Something that could open doors for travel, business activities, social activities, a digital certificate that would show whether people have in fact been vaccinated against COVID-19. Now, Denmark is taking steps towards that. It's joined forces with businesses and the tech industry. The government hopes to have digital vaccine passports on the market in the coming months. Sweden has today called for an international standard of digital vaccination certificates, which could be used around the world. But the technology does pose a number of challenges in terms of data privacy as well as social equality.
This is going to happen. And the question is, how should it be regulated? How should it be regulated? What limits should be placed on it? What are the boundaries of social acceptability? Those are real questions I think those are real questions for the for civil society and for the government. And I think the government is thinking very hard about these things. That I do know. They're not ignoring it.
Well, there have been protests across France today as unions call for the protection of public sector jobs. Students, nurses, teachers, and theatre professionals among those taking part. Demonstrations were also held outside offices and labs of Sanofi, the French pharmaceutical giant, which recently announced plans to cut hundreds of jobs from its research and development unit. Employees accused the drug maker of making mistakes in its investment and strategy that prioritize profits over science. Ellen Gainsford reports.
White lab coats and white-hot rage. These protesters are angry at Sanofi's plans to cut more jobs. 400 research and development posts are currently on the line.
On veut qu'ils retirent leur plan de restructuration, bien évidemment, et qu'on discute autour de la table d'un développement de l'emploi, d'embauche et d'investissement pour une R&D et pour des affaires industrielles qui permettent de soigner les gens.
French unions accuse Sanofi of poor strategizing. Over the last 20 years, the company has put less money into research, while its competitors have invested massively. According to the CGT union, the company has halved its research staff since 2008. Instead, Sanofi has focused on producing pharmaceuticals. That's medicinal drugs, which account for more than 70% of its annual turnover, while its vaccine program is worth less than 16%. For its part, the pharma giant confirmed to France 24 it plans to invest 6 billion euros in research and development over the next 3 years, and is continuing discussions with unions regarding planned restructuring. Sanofi's COVID vaccine, under development with GlaxoSmithKline, won't be available until at least next year. In the meantime, the company will produce its rivals' products, with plans to manufacture the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine from April.
The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits dropped slightly for a third week in a row. 779,000 first-time claims were recorded last week, down from 812,000 the previous week. It's still nearly 4 times the pre-pandemic weekly average. In total, some 17.8 million people are receiving unemployment benefits. That includes those who are covered by emergency pandemic programs. Well, the payroll firm ADP says employers in the private sector hired 174,000 new workers in January. That's far more than anticipated and a sharp turnaround from December's losses. Meanwhile, the Biden administration continues to work on a $1.9 trillion stimulus and relief plan, while Republicans have put forward a $600 billion counteroffer. Democrats in the House of Representatives on Wednesday cleared the way to push the legislation through along party lines, although the president is still hoping for bipartisan support. Let's check in on the day's trading action now. Wall Street closed higher. The Dow Jones adding over 300 points by the closing bell. The S&P 500 jumping over 1% to a new record closing high. The Nasdaq also up over 1%. It was boosted by the likes of eBay. Its shares rose 5% on stronger than expected quarterly results. Earlier, stocks in Paris, Frankfurt, and Milan all closed higher. The FTSE 100 slightly lower in London after the Bank of England left interest rates and monetary policy unchanged. Brazil has been battered by the coronavirus pandemic, and nowhere is the economic toll more devastating than in the country's favelas. Now, 10 of the Sao Paulo neighborhoods are banding together to launch their own banking system in an effort to ease their access to financial aid. Catherine Viette has more.
At this favela in Brazil, residents line up for a free meal.
Ainda estou passando muita necessidade. Muita necessidade. Por exemplo, agora mesmo, se eu quisesse R$1 para eu comprar pão, eu não teria.
The pandemic's toll on the economy has hit hardest in the country's slums, where many residents work jobs in the informal sector, such as housekeeping and babysitting. Many have been relying on the government's emergency benefit payments, but that program just ended after officials said it was too costly to continue. Most of those left struggling to make ends meet are excluded from the traditional banking system. According to a recent study, around 45 million Brazilians don't even have a bank account. So the favelas are fighting back. 10 of the biggest slums have come together to launch their own bank. Dubbed the G10 Bank, it's set to open later this month with initial funding of $335,000 from anonymous investors. Its mission to offer low-interest loans and debit cards to favela residents.
Primeira forma é oferecer crédito para empreendedores que gostariam de abrir seu próprio negócio ou que já têm o seu negócio. A segunda é oferecer oportunidade para que as famílias que precisam poder receber doações através do cartão.
Its goal to become the development bank of the favelas. Marie's Hands Bistro, which has been providing free meals to the community, plans to apply for a loan from the G10 Bank.
All sorts of creative solutions coming out as people try to survive the best they can.
It looks like one that could bring a lot of good solutions to people in the favelas of Brazil. Thanks for that, Kate Moody. And that brings us to the end of this first half hour of Live from Paris. Back after a short break for the weather. Do stay tuned.